Welcome back to TLDR's daily briefing for Monday the 31st of March 2025. In today's episode, we cover the Trump-Putin fallout, Greenland's new Prime Minister, and the UK's data on migrant removals. But first, an earthquake in French politics as Marine Le Pen is banned from office. France's far-right opposition leader, Marine Le Pen, has been found guilty of embezzlement of public funds by a French court and has been rendered ineligible for public office for 5 years, a major upending of the 2027 presidential race. Le Pen was also handed a 4-year prison sentence, of which 2 years are suspended, and a €100,000 fine. Le Pen will almost certainly appeal the verdict. However, the court decided to impose her ineligibility to run for office with immediate effect, meaning that she will remain ineligible even during the appeals process. Le Pen's party, the National Rally, has been fined €2 million, and 23 other defendants were also convicted, while just one was acquitted. Essentially, Le Pen and others were convicted of what amounted to a fake jobs scheme, worth some €2.9 million, during her time in the European Parliament. This involved misusing EU money to pay for National Rally staff in France, with money provided by the European Parliament and intended to pay for parliamentary staff for parliamentary activity. Le Pen and the others had denied the charges. The verdict is a massive earthquake in French politics, as Le Pen has for a while now been considered the frontrunner to win the 2027 presidential election. Her only route to restoring her eligibility is if she successfully appeals the verdict. According to the French newspaper Le Monde, appeals typically take a year to hear, so if she were tried again in 2026 and the decision went her way before the beginning of the campaign, that would make her candidacy possible. However, Le Monde writes that the verdict is likely to be upheld at appeal, given the case file and the very detailed reasons given at first instance. The verdict opens up the possibility that, for the first time in its history, the National Rally will have to run someone other than Marine Le Pen, or her late father, as its presidential candidate. The obvious candidate would be the party's 29-year-old president, Jordan Bardella. The European right wing have reacted angrily to the verdict, with condemnations coming from the Kremlin, Viktor Orban, and Geert Wilders. Le Pen herself left the courtroom before the details of her sentence were announced, and has yet to comment publicly, but will be interviewed on French television tonight. The National Rally's Jordan Bardella said the verdict amounted to French democracy being executed. Interestingly, within France, criticism of the sentencing has not just come from the political right. Leftist leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, while condemning the actions of the National Rally, said that the decision to remove an elected official should be up to the people. Meanwhile, the leader of the Greens reacted to the verdict by saying, "When you steal money from the French people, you are punished." You're listening to TLDR's daily briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's other channels. Today, we released a TLDR Global video on whether the US dollar is losing its reserve currency status. You can find the video linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube or Nebula. US President Donald Trump has said he's pissed off with Russian President Vladimir Putin over Russia's failure to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine. He has also threatened secondary tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil if no deal is done. It comes as the US prepares to implement tariffs against many of its big trading partners on Wednesday this week. On Sunday, Trump said to reporters, "If we're in the midst of a negotiation, you could say that I was very angry, pissed off, when Putin started getting into Zelensky's credibility. That's not going in the right location, you understand." It marks a shift in rhetoric from the US president, who previously blamed Zelensky for obstructing a peace deal, and whom he called a dictator before questioning whether he'd actually said that. However, Trump also criticized Zelensky for, quote, trying to back out of the rare earth deal, adding, "And if he does that, he's got some problems." Greenland's new Prime Minister has hit back at Trump's comments about wanting to take control of the territory, saying, "President Trump says that the United States is getting Greenland. Let me be clear, the United States is not getting it. We do not belong to anyone else. We determine our own future." For context, Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory in the Kingdom of Denmark, with its own 31-member parliament and Prime Minister. Its new Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, took office on Friday after a general election held earlier this month, at the head of a new broad government coalition. Nielsen made the comments after an uninvited visit by Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance, US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Energy Secretary Chris Wright to the US's space base at Pituffik on Friday. He will meet with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen on Wednesday for talks on building a common position as transatlantic tensions rise. Finally, the UK government has announced it has hit an 8-year high in the rate of migrant removals since Labour took office last summer. Speaking at the Organised Immigration Crime Summit on Monday, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that 24,000 people with no right to be in the UK have been removed since July, the highest 9-month period compared to any 9-month period since 2017. Out of those 24,000, more than 6,300 were enforced returns of people with no legal right to remain in the UK. Nearly 3,600 were of foreign national offenders, and around 6,800 were asylum-related returns. Starmer also said in his speech that he was shocked by the lack of coordination under the last government between the police, border force, and the intelligence services, saying there was a total fragmentation. He also took aim at the previous government's Rwanda policy, calling it a gimmick and claiming that it would have taken the Rwanda scheme 80 years to meet the removal rate achieved by Labour. That's all for today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, if you want to support the show, then consider grabbing a copy of our physical magazine, Too Long. The next edition, coming out in April, covers the world's 25 most influential people, as ranked by us, the TLDR team, and you, the TLDR audience. Inside, we unpack who these influential people are, explain how they got their influence, and tell stories about how they choose to wield this immense power. The entire thing is beautifully designed, contains a bunch of other stories, and runs over 72 pages of our best journalism. If you're interested, you can use the code TLDRDaily at checkout to get £2 off your copy, which brings the cost of a subscription down as low as £5.99. Buying Too Long helps to fund all of our journalism, so make sure you do check it out. You can find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR news production hosted by Georgina Findlay, written by Rory Taylor and Georgina Findlay, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow.